Welcome to the Creative Rebelution Podcast. I am your host. This is Suze, the Creative Rebel. Today we're going to talk about getting started and all the reasons why we struggle to get started. Which is why we're going to need to spend some time hanging out with our friends, Mr. Procrastinator and Little Miss Perfectionist. Mr. Procrastinator was rearing his ugly head today as I decided that I was going to start making one YouTube video every day. Yeah, I don't think you're ready. I think you should have a cup of tea and watch some Netflix.
Yeah, I agree. I think you should do another course to perfect your production skills before you get started.
Yeah. I hear the moon is in the 8th house of Venus. It's not a good time to get started.
Yeah, you're right. I don't think the stars are aligned. I think we should wait.
And that, my friends, is how to get absolutely nothing done. I hate to be the one to rip all of your excuses from underneath you, but if you listen to those voices, you will never start anything. First of all, it was my hair. I have to get my hair done. 7 hours later, I got some braids put in, so I don't have that as an excuse anymore. The second thing was I need a green screen. Unfortunately, my green screen arrived 6 days early, so I could no longer use that as an excuse either. But the weather's really dull today and it's really grey and there's not enough light coming into my apartment, so I can't really film today. And whilst these are fairly decent excuses of reasons why we can't get started, Mr. Procrastinator will find any reason for you not to get started. Suddenly cleaning the toilet has never been more appealing than right now when you're supposed to be making a YouTube video. So why am I making a podcast if I'm supposed to be making a YouTube video? The best tool that I can possibly suggest if you are delaying on setting up your creative project, writing that book, making your YouTube video, is simply to get started and not allow yourself not to make something that day. If you have to make something every single day, no matter what the quality, you'll find that just by starting you get into your creative flow. So I wanted to be all fancy and use my Canon camera to make my YouTube video. I wanted to play with my green screen. I wanted to use professional lights. I got everything set up and it still wasn't looking good. I could feel Little Miss Perfectionist starting to get a little bit agitated. Because of course we want everything to be perfect the first time, and if it isn't, it's an excuse to procrastinate. Oh, it's not working today, I'll just do it tomorrow. Mañana, mañana, mañana. And I have to be honest, my mañana ritual has been going on for quite a while. I literally could have a mantra that says mañana, mañana, mañana. But not today. Today I decided that I've got to start this one video a day thing, even if the video that I make is absolutely atrocious. 1% of something is a hell of a lot better than 100% of nothing. And I'm really glad I started because after a lot of hiccups, a lot of resistance, a lot of complaining, comparing myself to other people who clearly have their act together, unlike me, I eventually managed to create quite a few creative things that were unexpected. If things are not flowing the way you want them to, stop forcing them to flow that way. Be like water. It wasn't really working out with the professional lights and the green screen and the Canon camera. So I just decided to use my phone, which is a very basic phone. What stops us getting started is that we think that everything has to be perfect, that there's no room for mistakes, and that kind of pressure is enough for anyone to not want to get started. You can't turn creativity into a museum. It's got to be more like a playground or a dressing up box. This is why some artists like to put a dot on the corner of their canvas because essentially it's already messed up. It's just a simple reminder to take the pressure off. In general, I'm a full-time creative content maker. I have no idea why, but this winter it was as if there was no motivation and there was no creativity. And now that the spring has come, the creativity is starting to flow. But getting started, there was a lot of resistance. So when those voices come up telling you the lighting's not good enough, your hair's not the right color, whatever the resistance is coming up, speak to it and say, okay, I totally hear you. You're probably right. But you know what? I'm just going to start anyway. And as I said, it didn't work out with the green screen, the Canon camera, and the professional lightings. And I just grabbed my phone and I made a video. It's definitely not the best video I've ever made. It was just a simple vlog. I can't see that thing going viral. But it got the wheels turning. It got the juices flowing. And I could feel I was a bit stiff and out of practice of making daily videos. So I decided to loosen up with my position and lie down on my bed, which had this really beautiful sheet full of rose petals. Because it was already late at night, it wasn't working with the video, but I thought, maybe this would make some beautiful photos. And sure enough, the photos were quite nice actually. At least I've got some thumbnails ready for when my YouTube video does get made. But I was still feeling a bit frustrated because the whole intention had been to make YouTube videos, wasn't really happening. And I was feeling a little bit frustrated because I felt like I had a lot to say. And that's when I realized the message of what I was trying to say was the most important part, regardless of what medium it comes in. And living alone, I have the luxury of being able to talk to myself like a crazy person. And so I found that I was talking all of these ideas out loud. And now that the ideas were flowing and the juices were flowing, it felt like a waste to just go to bed. And that's when I suddenly thought, sod the video, let's make a podcast. So I sat down and I opened Anchor and I created a new account so that I could create this new podcast. And then my microphone wasn't working. And you might notice how all the voices in your head start saying things like, it's a sign. Yeah, you should probably just go to bed. It's probably not going to work. And whilst technology can sometimes get in the way of the flow of creativity, if we don't allow it to, and we just simply Google, how do I fix my mic, and just keep going, determined, eventually I sorted it all out. The reason I'm sharing my process with you is that I want you to realize that whether you've been on stage since you were 5 or you've been a full-time content creator for the last 4 years like I have, it doesn't matter if creativity is part of your profession or just something you do for joy. Everyone gets stuck at some point. Everyone suffers from procrastination and perfectionism. And the worst thing of all about procrastination is the judgment that we have on top of the procrastination. Oh, I shouldn't be feeling like this. I shouldn't be feeling stuck. I shouldn't be procrastinating. We don't have to suffer because we're procrastinating. Your body is not against you. And if you're procrastination, chances are your body is simply finding a way to keep you safe. There's always a good reason for procrastination. Maybe you were bullied in the past, and so if you do this project and you start to expose your talents, you could risk being rejected. And the pain of that you experienced in the past felt like death, and you don't want to go through that again. So your body is simply finding a way to avoid the pain. Procrastination. And when we look at it like that, we realize, oh wow, actually, procrastination is a really handy tool to keep us safe. It's not because you're lazy or because you're a failure. Saying that to yourself is only going to make the procrastination worse. If you see it as the body's way of keeping you safe from danger, you can simply say, thank you so much, body, for keeping me safe, but I think I want to jump outside of my comfort zone right now. So if it's okay with you, I'm just going to play and explore. And if it turns out that I'm really, really unsafe, then you can rein things in. It might sound like the most basic advice ever. How do I get started? You just get started. But it really is that simple. I'm not saying it's easy. Just because something is simple doesn't make it easy, but it is simple. Do not give yourself the option of anything other than starting. You don't need to create a masterpiece. You don't need to have expectations on yourself. You just need to start. You may or may not notice a subtle difference in the sound of this podcast now, as Suze just realized that the buzzing sound was the sound of her fridge, and now she's just turned off her fridge. Because I care more about art than food.
That's just unacceptable. Oh my God, you should redo this whole episode.
And if I gave in to the voice of self-doubt and fear of Miss Perfectionist, I absolutely would delete this entire episode and recreate it from the beginning. But if you catch yourself, you'll probably discover that Mr. Procrastinator is simply having a conversation with Miss Perfectionist. And they will do anything to keep you in your comfort zone. Do not judge your creativity. Set it free. Allow it to be limitless. Allow yourself to make mistakes. Allow yourself to get it wrong. And allow yourself, above all, to play. A lot of the best art comes out of mistakes. And at the end of the day, we're not trying to make a masterpiece at this stage. If you're feeling stuck and you've been avoiding getting started for some time, all we're trying to achieve is producing something more than you were producing before, which was nothing. So it's really not that hard. In the words of Kyle Cease, I hope I screw this up. Swap your mantra of mañana, mañana, mañana to I hope I screw this up. I hope I screw this up. What will you start today? Oh, I couldn't possibly. I'm very busy today. I've got a very, 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 very long meeting. Yes, you have. You've got a meeting with getting started. I have been Suze. This has been the Creative Rebelution Podcast. Creative Rebelution Podcast is now available on Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, and Spotify. If you have a particular subject that you would like Creative Rebelution to cover in one of our next episodes, please leave a voice message at anchor.fm/creative-revolution.